Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of Conversations with Cogee. Definitely bringing the great stories for you guys, and definitely bringing great information, and definitely giving you something to talk about to all your friends, to your children. You know, we're giving you something to stir up conversation. And like I said, I got my crew in today. All my regulators are in, making sure they back me up. Miss Peaches, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Cogee, and I enjoyed your first guest. Your first hour was really great, and I know that this hour we're going to have lots more information to share with our listeners.
Oh, yeah, you're definitely right about that. Big Blaze, how you doing today?
I'm right, Cogee. Just glad to be on the show. Excellent first hour.
Thank you, man. What did you like about the first hour, Big Blaze, and what did you learn from it?
I like how the guest you had broke down the topics down in detail in terms of autism and you know, just the attention to detail that parents can provide towards the kids rather than just pushing them off to a psychologist or someone who's just going to put them on medications or some type of doctor, but learning how to evaluate all of the phases and learning how to evaluate them in full detail so that, you know, you can be more a part of your child's life rather than just having them doped up on medications all the time.
That's right.
And thinking that that's adequate enough, you know, to fix the problem. And in fact, not even overlooking the fact that it may just be making them worse, but, you know, just being a part of your child's life and, you know, regardless of what type of complication it has, you know, being there as a parent.
That's right. I hear you, man. I appreciate that. Oh, I got another regulator in, my partner, the other half of the new radio show that we're coming out with, Cogee and Matt Live, Living for the City. What's up, Mr. Matthew Cox?
How's it going, Cogee?
How you doing, man?
Good.
Hey, Matt.
Hey, Miss Peaches, how are you? Big
I'm
Blaze.
good. How's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Big Blaze.
Hey, what's going on? You know?
Hey, we sound like the Waltons on here, everybody. Yeah. Hey, good
night,
morning, John Boy. Hey, but you know what? That's what we love. We got, let me tell you, every different color on this phone. Y'all know my shows, it's all about a gumbo. It's a gumbo full of love. Hey, you know what? We all feel like we all got to live in this world together, and that's why it was important for me and Mr. Matthew Cox to do this new show. We'll talk about that more in the third hour, but why Matt is here with me co-hosting today is because he deals with this situation with the Never Give Up Foundation and, you know, mental health and a lot of different stuff like that. Matt, now I got to ask you this because I know for a fact, because I talk to you all the time, and I done seen you work with the families and the children. What does it take to deal with an autistic child?
You know, that's a good question. Working with the parents, this is what I've been given as far as feedback and, you know, working on their emotional side is every child is different. When you work with a child individually just with behavioral problems or a child in general, parenting's not easy. No. So then if you add a disability on top of that, right, it becomes even more time-consuming and overwhelming for the parent. Just like you heard the commercial, like the football individual, who was it again that was at the first? They found out their child had a...
Oh, yeah, Dan Marino.
Yeah, and like they explained, is it's a surprise, and then you have to kind of emotionally deal with it. Here's what I found, Cogee, when I was working with a lot of parents in California, when they find out a diagnosis of autism, it's a big life loss because they don't know how to deal with it.
That's right.
I remember one of the parents saying, you know, it's almost getting told your child has X, Y, and Z, and you're not quite sure what to do on it. So huge emotional compact there, and it makes sense. But as you get to know the kids, as I teach the parents, as we come behind the emotion of it and let them know, you know, it's not going away. What are we going to do about it?
Right.
And there's high-functioning autism. I remember one of the parents, she had, we called him Jack, the Pirate Jack. And Jack loved to dress up as themes. So it would just be like maybe he was a pirate one day or a football guy or Superman. And he grew up more, Jack can articulate. He was very articulate. Mom came into the room, and Mom's like, "Hey, Jack, what are you doing?" And he was neatly folding his clothes, and he had a pair of underwear he was folding, and he was putting it up in the closet. And she goes, "Jack, what are you doing?" He goes, "Well, I'm putting those away because I had some good times in those underwear, so I'm going to save them." And then she just starts cracking up.
Right.
But that's Jack, and that was the personality Jack has.
He's expressing himself.
Yeah, and you find the characteristics of individuals with autism. They're above genius level. Right. Some of them are very,
we're going to get into that.
Yeah,
definitely.
And they're very there. And so it's a hard thing. So coming back to the parenting, it's called the 80-20 rule. And a lot of times in the home, 80% of focus is on that child, and 20% is on everything else in most cases. And I say not all cases are the same, so it's tough, but it also is a blessing, and they're there for a reason. And as the parent finds and as the family finds out, they're a blessing to their home.
I hear you. Hey, you broke it down. I mean that. I'm glad you're here, man. You definitely was that a little? But you broke it down. I mean, you could tell it better than me. This is something that you deal with a lot, and that's why I pulled to you. You're my partner. I said, Matt, come in, and I want to pull to you on this because you know more than me, and you do this all the time, But I sit back and I watch all the great things that you do with the families, and how patient you are with some of the families that don't get it sometimes, and you got to put up with attitudes, and you got to persuade somebody to really listen to you and move, to your beat, because you do know the rhythm to this situation, and I thank you for that. That's
thank you,
I wanted to
Christian,
praise you, definitely. So everybody, I want y'all to stay locked in. I want y'all to get ready. We got Miss Lynette in, who's very beautiful, sitting here right now, beautiful smile, and they just light up when we talk about these kids, and that's what I love, because that's what we do too. And like I said, it's all about family on this show. It's all about love. This show, it ain't no sad show. We ain't sad about this. We happy about it because we moving forward, and we don't want no children or no family members to hear this and feel like this is a funeral. No, this is a celebration, because we fighting for the right to, help these children get unlocked mentally, and doing everything that we can do to get the information out there to help them to move forward and have a great life. So stay locked in, and we'll have more great information when we come back. Much love to you guys. Hey, hope y'all enjoy the song, baby, because it's about family to me 24/7. We'll be right back. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to Conversations with Cogee. Title of the show today, Autism, the Real Truth. Hey, and we streaming worldwide, all around the world. Miss Peaches, what you think about this second hour? And our guest is coming in the second hour. What would you like to say to her?
Oh, I'm so happy that she can join us and be with us. Really important that we get this awareness out there, Cogee, because then we have understanding. And then from understanding, we can start helping.
That's right. Big Blaze, what do you think about our guest in the house today?
I think what Miss Peaches said is correct. Understanding is the most important thing. We have to address the situations, understand what the problem is in root detail, and then, bring the knowledge as we go. That's
right. There it is. Mr. Matthew Cox, how vital is this this show today, that it needs to be out there, for everybody to hear it?
Oh, well, autism, it's important to have people understand it. Like I like what your guest said last show, is that sometimes when you're out in the community, you might run across an autistic child, or you're in a public area and you're not sure. It's good to be aware. It's good to have knowledge.
And you think it's just a Dennis the Menace, just a bad child.
Like you said.
And you don't know. And you already saying, oh, look at the parent, how they just let that child act. But people, you have no clue. And that's why we bring in great information today. And we're going to break it down. And like I said, Lynette, we going to bring her in a second. Jay, can you please roll the red carpet? And let's bring our guests in.
Lynette is married to Jose Medina and has 4 children: Julia, who's 10, Diego, who's 9, Mateo, 6, and Aaron, who's 5. Lynette is a stay-at-home mom and also a full-time student at Nevada State College, working on her bachelor's in psychology. She hopes to move on to achieve her master's in occupational therapy at Touro University. Diego was diagnosed with autism at the age of 3 by the Clark County School District, but was noticed to be developmental delayed at the age of 10 months. Diego had services through Nevada Early Intervention Services until he was 3 years old, then transitioned over to the school district. Diego has ABA therapy for over 5 years, and he did not talk until he was about 4.5 years old. He has had speech therapy for over 7 years and occupational therapy for 5 years. Diego has acquired limited verbal skills and loves the computer, Disney movies, jumping on the trampoline, pirates, and parties. Lynette's goal is to help educate and advocate for local Las Vegas families and give them strength and support through her personal experiences with autism. We want to welcome Lynette to the show.
Miss Lynette, welcome to Conversations with Cogee.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, you know what? And we feel blessed to have you here, because, like I said, I've been reaching out to a lot of people and trying to get them in. I've been trying to do this autism show for the longest. Miss Peaches, am I right or wrong?
Cogee, you're too right, and it's just been too long. So it's really nice to have some great people who have stepped up to the plate.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. And I do feel like you're a shero. You're one of the sheroes of the community. See, that's a hero sidekick, a shero. And you definitely a shero. I mean that you're doing a lot. And, like I said, you're a mom, that's dealing with a child that's going through this right now. And nobody can tell the story better than you, what you go through. And I'm going to ask you real quick, what is a day-to-day with this situation? No, let me rewind it for 1 second. Tell me about when you first got the diagnosis from the doctor. Take me to that first day and your feelings and everything, when he told you this.
Well, we didn't really get a diagnosis from a doctor.
Okay.
We noticed at 10 months that he was just different. He didn't respond to his name. He didn't babble. He didn't say anything. He would stare at fans for hours. So we just knew that there was something that was going to be wrong with him. We first thought that he was going to be like deaf.
Okay.
But when we took him to the doctor, he's like, no, he's not deaf. He's like, but he is delayed, so you need to take him to Nevada Early Intervention. And since he was so young, they cannot diagnose that early.
Right.
So we began therapies with him. He had, I think it was about 3 days a week with a developmental specialist. They used to come in, a speech therapist came in, an occupational therapist came in. When he got older and he was able to walk and, his fine motor got better, he started doing the stereotypical things, the hand flapping, the rocking. And then that's when they told us that, we think he might have autism. And that was like around 2.5. By that time, they start transitioning you over to the school district. And the school district did a whole battery of tests, and they told us, he has autism.
Where did your mind go to when you and your husband first heard that? Like you said, it was something wrong. And you probably felt like, okay, well, whatever it is, we doing what we can do to get him out of it. But then when they come back and say autism, well, did your heart drop? What did you go through, you and your husband?
My heart definitely dropped, but we just felt like now we know what he has, so let's do something about it. Right. We really didn't go through any, like some parents like grieve, because of the loss, like he said about life. We really didn't go through that. We just said, oh, now we know what he has, so what's out there? And we started like right away with ABA therapy. We put him in school. We did everything under the sun. Right.
And what would you say to a parent that's going through this right now and it's a struggle for them and they just feel like, oh my God, it's just one of them, oh my God situations because you want so much for your child?
I would say take it one day at a time. If you're not well, I don't think that you're able to help your child. If you're not well mentally, physically, if you're overwhelmed, do as much as you can.
I hear you. And what would you say to the single moms out here that's doing it them all by themselves with an autistic child?
I would say try to get in touch with a parent support group. Like us, I'm the secretary of FEED of Southern Nevada, which is Families for Effective Autism Treatment. We have a parent support group that meets the first Monday of every month at Claim Jepper at Town Square. Okay. Get in touch with some parents, that way you can get that support. If you don't have a spouse or family, at least you can gain friends, and that's.
Okay. All right. So, Matt, I want to ask you a question real quick. I'm going to come to you. You're a man, and I know I can also answer this question, but I'm going to swing it to you. What does this do to a father that hears that he has a son on the way, and it's in the mom's stomach, and it's developed, I know I got 5 more months before my baby boy come, my NFL star, my NBA star, my attorney, my judge, whatever a father wants his first child to be. What does that do to that father? And I'm asking you because I know you done been through it personally. What does it do to that father's dreams for that child?
I like what your guest had said too, is that piggybacking off her to answer that question is some parents just want to know what's wrong. They just want to get that answer and they're excited. Now we know what's wrong. Let's go to work. But then on the flip side, I've seen it also where some parents, the fathers especially, if it's like their son or if it's anything, it's a huge loss. Because I notice in all cultures, because we like to talk about the diversity. When I'm in LA, I have a lot of Armenian, Spanish, different cultures, it's hard for the men, and especially in the Asian culture, your firstborn son, it's huge.
Represents
Yeah.
the king.
And here's a story, and I'll do it real quick, and I'll move on and give it back. Is that I remember one of the stories down in L.A. I ran across. It was a very known surgeon. She was in the Asian community. She was a very well-known surgeon down there. She found out her firstborn son was diagnosed with autism, and she was in the middle of surgery just right before she found out she had to go into surgery. She ended up cutting herself as she was doing surgery because she was so emotionally distraught. She knew that the husband was not going to like it, because in that culture, not always, in its most cases, if really traditional, I always try to be careful. You know me, being
Right. I hear you. Yeah.
but she was just distraught. She started going home. She was actually on her way home when she tells the story to go commit suicide. And she decided to stop by and visit with this special ed supervisor or director in that area. And the lady was a tough African-American lady, told her to get over herself. I mean, really just, you know how that works, right?
Yeah.
She lit into her and just says, this is not about you.
That's right.
And just really helped her understand the difference of it. Later on, she came back and told that lady told her that saved her life. She didn't know that she was heading home to do that. So every parent's going to have a different reaction, and it's tough. It's tough when you hear that first reaction. For a man, it's going to be even more tough. As a mom, they have that nurturing, but even as a woman, you're going to have a huge reaction to it.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Great information. Big Blaze, I want to come to you real quick.
All right.
Big Blaze, your first child, and you're going through this with your son. What do you think it would do to you as a man?
It would definitely take away a lot of the different fantasies that I put in my head in terms of what my child has the potential of being. But then again, that's because I'm doing it myself. I mean, just because you have a child with any type of disability doesn't necessarily mean that child is going to be capable of being above and beyond what you expect for that child.
Right.
See, another human life is magical in that sense, I guess you could say, because we all have the ability to adapt, evolve, and overcome and be better than what people envision us to be. The expectations of your father, you know what I mean, on you is nothing compared to what you've become individually as a man. Right. And I think that's how I see it there, you know. So it would ultimately be me doing it to myself if I even did do it to myself. But all of that means absolutely nothing in the mind of, you know, the new life.
I hear you. Great information. I loved it. Miss Peaches, I'm coming to you. You're a mom, and you're going through it, and you hear that this is your first son. And the reason why I'm saying the boys first, and I'll get to the daughters later on, I'm saying the boys first because these are the young men that'll take care of you when they get older. They mommies, you know, they daddy's boys, but they mamas, you know, mama love their boys. I know this for a fact. Miss Peaches, excuse me, what would this do to you, and what frame of mind would you be in?
Well, obviously at first, just because you have, you know, when you have a child, you have dreams and visions of this being your perfect child.
Yeah.
And at first, I think you would have, you know, probably a feeling of disappointment. But once you understand what the road ahead is about, you know, and obviously being ready for the unexpected and the unknown, and just getting prepared for that. Maybe looking, if it's before you have your child, you can start looking into things to help development while the child's still in your stomach. If it's afterwards, and say your child is a year, 2 years old, just really start looking into, you know, early development things to where you can start working with your child as well, and not just pushing everything off on, you know, people like Matt, who's got his foundation, and your first guest, Andrew, but taking an active part in it yourself, so that you know that you, even though your child isn't what society considers perfect,
right,
that you can still teach them and guide them in the best way possible. And just a lot of patience. I think I would have to dig deep for that, for the patience, and not get lost, Cogee, in the feeling of like, why me? Because, you know, that there is a blessing in there, and you might not see it right away, but you'll see it somewhere down the line.
I hear you. I love, all of y'all brung it. Great information. I mean, definitely great information. But me being a father, I think if it was my first child, I'm very competitive. I'm one of those kind of people. So I think that would be a new challenge that would rise up. And I would definitely turn to Matt and say, Matt, I would probably go to him as a man and cry in my own way as a father to my friend who deals with this all the time and say, Matt, how can I get my child ahead of the game? This is what my child's going through. And, I know Matt will be there to see me through it, to even work with my child too. But I think when I say competitive, I will be on a mission to make my child overcome this. And Matt, it's what we talk about all the time. There's no losses with our shows. When we do shows, we don't talk about the losses. We talk about the wins. How important is it to have that win mentality?
Well, I think when it comes to any disability or anything, it comes to never giving up. That's the whole thing, is that when we have experienced that, personally having a disability myself, it can be autism, Down syndrome, a reading disability, whatever it may be. It's going to be frustration in there, right? And as a mom, did you see that frustration as you got to, even though you knew the diagnosis, you still had to work through how to function with it, right? And,
definitely.
And I think every parent, even my mom growing up with an ADHD child, I frustrated her. I give her a lot of gray hair. And it just depends on each kid, because they have their personalities, right?
Yeah.
And they're unique in their own way. So I think it's huge, Cogee, just learning how to work with it.
Right. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a break for a minute, then we come right back. We're going to definitely let Lynette break it all down to us. She's going to tell us everything we need to know, and I can't wait to hear her do her thing. And like I said, we're not taking nothing away from, the daughters. We just wanted to talk about the males, because these are the young men that, have to stand tall. You never know what happens with families, and divorces come, and you never know what, one of the parents could go down sick, and you have that young man that's there to help support the situation. So we're not taking nothing away from the females. We got love for the daughters, and we'll talk about them too, because see, we're gonna baby them and guard them. We really a trip about our daughters, us fathers. So we'll get to that next. So if you just tuned in, hey, this is the Autism, the Real Truth. This is my autism show that I'm glad I'm finally having, because I really want to be, a name and a force, me and Mr. Matthew Cox, in this autism fight. And we feel we're doing it today. So y'all stay locked in, and we'll be right back. And like I said, we'll get Miss Lynette in, and she's definitely going to break it down. This is my second hour. Stay locked in, and we'll be right back.
All right, welcome back to Conversations with Cogee with your host, Cogee, and all of us great guests. We're sitting here talking about autism, the real truth. So, Cogee, back to you. This is a great topic, and I'm excited that you brought it on the show.
Oh, yeah. And you know what, Matt? We've been talking about this for a long time. We've been wanting to bring this topic in. But I kept telling you, I'm like, Matt, I'm reaching out to people, and everybody's saying no. And you're like, well, I got one person that can come in, but, we want to bring some big names in. And the reason why I want to bring the big names in, because I really wanted to have the help that people can really go to and really get help. But you know what? One thing that you said that was really true, you said yesterday in our meeting that we had, everybody's a big name when they're dealing with this. Everybody got different outlets. So I didn't want to disrespect nobody when I said we want to bring big names on. But if big names can help a little bit more than people that's struggling, because everybody's still trying to find their way with this, for this help. Am I right or wrong, Lynette?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So, Lynette, I want to ask you a question. Are boys more in line to get autism more than girls? Now, I heard a study on this, so I'm going to ask you.
Yes, it's more prevalent in boys than girls.
Why is that? Have you found out?
They don't know why. There's no cure for autism, so.
Is it 1 in every 100 child will be autism?
I think now it's like 1 in every 95.
1 in 95 now?
Yes.
Okay. Miss Peaches, I'm going to go to you.
I'm sorry, Cogee, would you please repeat the question?
No, I was asking you. I just was going to you and asking you, what would you like to ask Lynette?
Hi, Lynette. How are you doing today?
Hi, good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for being on the show with us. I really applaud you, and you definitely are a hero, like Cogee said, dealing with autism in your family. How has that affected, the other children in your family that that are not autistic? Have they been supportive? Have they been, is it hard for them? Do you have to take more time with your son that is, and they, you know what I'm saying, are they understanding? How do you deal with that dynamic? Because I know there's a lot of families out there that have the same situation like you, where they have more than one child.
Yeah, they are very accepting of it. They love their brother. Since we have therapy in our house 4 days a week, they're very exposed to how they're supposed to deal with him.
Okay.
And actually, my youngest, my 5-year-old, he is actually a peer model for an autism classroom in CCSD. So
Nice.
he is helping other kids with autism, too, by
That's
being
cool.
a model.
That's
Yeah. What
really
I
good.
do, I really try to break up my time. I do focus more time
Right.
on my son with autism, but I do... like my younger boys, I have them in baseball. My daughter, I have her in Girl Scouts. I have their activities, too.
Right. Does Diego feel sometimes, do you have to kind of have like mommy intervention? Does he feel like jealous at times, or, why am I not able to do the same that they can do? You know what I'm saying? Does he ever go through that?
Well, he is on the lower side of the spectrum. He is more moderate to severe. So he is not aware, and also his verbal capabilities are very limited. So he's not able to express feelings.
What's his stimming, by the way? What
He does the ukulele.
he does?
Yeah,
Okay.
and he does the hand flapping.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know what? That was great. I loved what you asked, Miss Peaches. That was great. Big Blaze, I'm going to be coming to you in a minute. After I ask this question, I'll be coming to you, so get ready. I want to ask both of you guys a question, Lynette and Matt, real quick. People think there's only one type of autism. It's not. Right or wrong, Lynette?
No. Since I've been part of this organization, I have the pleasure of dealing with kids on, both sides of the spectrum and all in between, Every child is different.
Right.
So what they're deficient is, what they are deficient in is different in every child. Like, it could be socially. Some kids are very deficient socially, or some kids are very deficient language. So it just all depends. Every child is different, so treatment plan is always different for every child. It doesn't all look the same either.
Okay. Matt?
Yeah, I think on the scale of autism, it's like she said earlier, there's no cure to it. There's no understanding to it. They're still researching it. It's one of those phenomenons they're trying to figure out why it occurs. And so you have you have really high functioning. My favorite show is The Big Bang Theory. You ever seen it?
Yes.
Sheldon comes on the end of, if anybody's ever seen it, Sheldon's that Asperger's, which is a form of autism, which they're very highly intelligent. Then you have the lower functioning, where they will stem. And we say lower functioning. I always want to make sure that people are clear in that. That just means there's a lot of sensory overload. It's where lots of information's coming in and they don't know how to deal with it. So it's called stimming. I just used the word earlier. Right. Stimming is a way of them getting energy out. They'll rock, some of the hand flapping, some they'll make sounds or clicking. And so we'll go through those a little bit as we go on. But yeah, there's no really, it comes and goes. And I've seen kids where they're nonverbal and they're runners. I don't know if you've ever worked with autism kids that we call them runners, where they'll just all of a sudden take off and start running.
Or they elope.
Yeah, or they elope, and so
Right.
you chase them. So you just have to be aware of what you're working with as a provider or as a parent. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Big Blaze, I'm coming to you. What would you like to ask Miss Lynette, or what would you like to ask Mr. Matthew Cox?
Well, mainly in the case of autistic children, I mean, not so much as far as Asperger's, because I've heard of that one as well, but autistic kids. Do you really think in most cases people react in terms of it being a negative versus a positive? Because of most of the autistic kids that I've mentored in the past were outspoken geniuses. And I think that what really happens is before their good abilities are looked at, the first thing that they look at, and which ultimately tears them apart, is the negative of the factor. Because kids, especially with autistic lifestyle, that they have a tendency to react a lot more, I guess you could say, critically to understandings of bad news within their life versus if you introduce good news. Now, in my regard to this, how would you view in terms of how parents react of hearing that their children is autistic? Would you say it's produced more of a negative regards and outcomes versus positive, or vice versa?
Who do you want to answer the question, Lynn or Matt?
Let's do Lynn first.
Okay.
Well, I think it's all about, educating the public about autism, so they don't have the preconceived notions, because you hear people always go, oh, they're like Rain Man. They always say like that movie,
right.
And that's not the case, but you do see more of a negative just because they don't understand and they don't know, so I think it's just all about educating the public so they know that just because a child might be throwing a temper tantrum, doesn't mean that they're a bad kid. It just means that it could be that they're different. I always tell people that because it's happened to me before, I tell them, why don't you offer me some help?
That's right.
Ask me for help. Don't criticize me, and I explain to them, they have autism and this is what autism is, and I tell them, you should offer help next time, and because you never know.
Right. I hear you.
And I think it's Autism Speaks, great website. They've done a good job in educating individuals, and in all the commercials we have there, campaign in this century, on TV and everything. We've done a good job educating, but I think in the past it was like Rain Man. They had this, something's odd. And we've all been in a restaurant. I know that I've had experiences, but having the experience in the industry, I can spot it very quickly. But those that don't have that ability, they kind of are uncomfortable. I've noticed that.
Right.
They're like, what do we do? It's even with Down syndrome kids. It doesn't matter if it's Down syndrome or just somebody that has a disability in a wheelchair. We kind of, me and you've talked about this, Cogee. It's like, how do people react to it? Do you see that with your son when you're out and about, when he starts stimming? What's the reactions you get in the public? Like maybe you're shopping or...
But hold on. Can we say this real quick?
Hold
on. Can y'all let people know? Some people don't know what stimming means.
Well, stimming, like he said, it's a way for them. They're overstimulated.
Okay.
Just by sound, feelings, all your senses. So the way that they get it out is either by verbally, like my son scripts, or he makes noises. It sounds like he's singing. Everybody always thinks that he's singing, but he's not.
Right.
Or they do the hand flapping. They flap their hands when they're. My son does it all when he's excited. When he's really excited, he really flaps his hands. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How did you at first, when you were working with that, and this is some things I always hear from parents, were you embarrassed by that, or is your husband more embarrassed,
good
or how do you deal that in public? Like say you're shopping, you're used to it now, but when you first started, how was that?
Good question.
Yeah, it was a little, embarrassing, especially for my husband, because we're Hispanic. So culturally, like my husband, the way he was raised, he wants to be like everybody else. He doesn't want his kids to be different.
Right.
So it was very, very embarrassing for him at first. But you do get people that stare.
Yeah, they can
stare. They make comments like, rude comments sometimes. And then sometimes you have the people that are really understanding, and they're like, oh, I don't want to say anything, but does your kid have autism? And, they kind of try to help you or, things like that. So.
Right.
We had a parent that used to have a child that would have to be in a superhero costume every time he went out. It was just the flavor of the day, and that's what he did. And so the father had a harder time than the mom. And so the father was like, oh, great, here we go again. Or, she would talk about the embarrassment. So that's why I asked that question. It's a good one to know.
Yeah, that was great. That was a great, I like that. Because I would, like I said, in the third hour, I really want y'all to stay locked in. Because a lot of these questions, like where Matt just swung from, it's going to be a lot of those questions in the third hour. And we really want y'all to hear this show. And I think this show is very needed. And we will be playing it and making sure that whoever needs this show will make sure that you have it so you can stay, ahead of the game. But I want to ask you, what is the organization FEAT?
FEAT stands for Families for Effective Autism Treatment. We're a local nonprofit organization dedicated to helping families that have been affected by autism by providing them with all the local resources here in Southern Nevada. We also do events. We have a monthly parent support meeting, one in English, one in Spanish. We also have a parent hotline one in English and in Spanish, so you can call that hotline
cool.
at any time, and somebody will answer the phone and answer any of your questions. We also have quarterly tutor trainings in partnership with the Lova Center. And the tutor trainings are for families that have ABA home programs, they call them.
That's cool.
Whereas therapists come out to your home and you work, they break down things that you want your child to learn academically, or if it's socially, or, living skills and things like that. So they have that quarterly. We also have, in the summertime, we do pool parties where we bring vendors from the community, from the autism community out there. And we have food, they have the pool, the parents get information. It's just another way to get information out to families.
Okay.
We also have a monthly family night. We usually have it at Sports Social. And it's just different times. You got to check on our website. But what we do is we bring in a community speaker from the autism community.
Right.
And while they're playing with Andrew and in Sports Social with all of his team, the parents are able to get the information that they might need.
Right. And share information with each other as well.
Oh, exactly. Yes.
Right. And let me ask you a question. What are the signs and symptoms of autism to some people who's just tuning in, or just for us who don't know, that might see you in the grocery store, like you said, with your child or any other child out in public? And we know that just ain't a Dennis the Menace child. It's not a bad child. This is a child with those signs. So what would be those signs?
Some of the early signs are they're non-responsive to their names. They have the self-stimulatory behaviors, like I said before, like either they script or they have like a verbal noise. They tiptoe walk. They rock. They also line up toys in a certain way.
Oh, yeah.
Very repetitive like behaviors.
And I noticed they'll keep counting those toys over and over again. And if they do have their toys set a certain way, when they come back in the room, they know if their toys done been moved.
Yes.
I saw that, and I was like, wow, because I really studied this before the show today. And I was like, wow. And the lady was like, when my son comes in, if his brothers and sisters have moved his stuff, it's all hell's going to break loose. Because he wants it. He knows he'll keep counting them over and over again. Then it was one kid that loved bubbles all over the bathroom, all over the floor, all the way up to the ceiling. He loved just being in bubbles. So, it's a lot of different things, that children go through, So I was like, wow, that they are very, intelligent, and some people think they're not.
So I had a question for Mom, because I think Mom and the family dynamics with autism, what was the depression you seen in your, as a parent and as a father, what was the depression? Because I know some families will go through that, and it sounds like your family's became an advocate family, which I love, because it sounds like your kids advocating, you're advocating, which is the greatest thing to overcome it in the home, is be a part of it and get to know it and embrace it. So what did you see? Because other parents that might be just starting their journey in this, I know Autism Speaks has a emergency kit. It's that first kit you get when you find out your kid has a diagnosis.
Yeah, the first 100 days. Yeah.
First 100 days. What did you guys do? And what was the depression that you kind of watched and went through?
We got very lucky that his first teacher at CCSD was actually an ABA tutor, and she was very involved in feet. That's how I got involved in feet, was through her. So she actually gave me all the information, but I know sometimes, not all families are that lucky. But searching the web for local resources, that would be one of the best things, and getting in touch with the parent support group like FEET, where you can share information with other parents that maybe they've been in it for a long time, and they can give you suggestions and kind of point you in the right direction.
Okay, there
I
it is.
like that.
There it is. You know what? Let me ask you another question. What services has your child received?
Well, my son, currently right now, he has ABA therapy.
Okay.
And he's had that for over 5 years. And he's had the speech for 7 years, and he's had occupational therapy for 5 years, and he's had physical therapy also for his tiptoe walking. So,
and I have a question on this, because a lot of families will say to me that it's hard to get Medicaid to pay for certain services when it comes to autism, because it's not on that scale. There, you can't diagnose it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not ADHD. It's not ODD. It's not PSD. You know, so you get what I'm. Because
Yeah.
you probably hit up against this.
Yeah.
What would be your advice to parents that are looking for services? How do they access these services?
Well, if parents are looking to get an ABA home program, they can go through CCSD. They can request it from their teacher. It's called an IIS form. It's I think it's Intensive Intervention Services, they call it. They will send out a team that will do a whole evaluation on them. I think it takes 6 to 8 weeks, and they'll take data on them, and they'll decide in an IEP meeting if your child will qualify for the services. You can also go through I think it's called the Department of Aging and Disabilities.
Yes.
They also have an autism program. It's called ATAP. You can get in contact with them, and they will come out and evaluate them and put you on their waiting list, because unfortunately they do have a waiting list. As far as speech, you have to really go around and call around and see if they accept your insurance, and then they'll evaluate and they'll send in the info for your insurance.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's so important so parents know how to get a hold of those services.
Right. Okay, so I want everybody to stay locked in. It's been a lot of that was great information back and forth from you two guys. Great. You know what? I want y'all to stay locked in. We're going to go into our third hour. I mean, it's going fast. We already had our third hour coming up. And this is our gumbo section where we get ready to come with everything. This is all about information. And at the end of the show, we're going to say, okay, well, what did we come up with? What advice, do we want people to take with them? Or, what did we get from it? We're going to learn a lot, and we're going to ask a lot of questions. So I want y'all to stay locked in. And like I said, in this hour, we got Miss Lynette Medina, Secretary of Families for Effective Autism Treatment. She's in today, and she's doing a great job. And, we want to say much love and blessings to you and your family. Thank you for coming in today, definitely.
Thank you.
And she's going to stay with us, and she's going to be a part of the third hour. So y'all stay locked in, and like I said, I hope this show is definitely helping a lot of people. Title of the show today, Autism, The Real Truth. And hey, you're getting it here on Conversations with Cogee. Stay locked in, and we'll be right back, guys.